Wild boars have become one of the most destructive invasive species in modern agriculture, and for farmers living near forests, their presence has turned daily life into a battle for survival. These animals are incredibly intelligent, strong, and difficult to control. They dig through fields in search of roots and insects, uproot crops overnight, damage irrigation lines, and even destroy fences meant to keep livestock safe. What makes the situation worse is their explosive reproduction rate. A single female can give birth to more than 10 piglets in one litter, often producing 2 litters within a single year. This rapid growth has pushed populations far beyond what the land can support, and traditional control methods have simply failed to keep up. In many rural areas, local authorities have tried traps, reinforced fences, deterrent chemicals, and even night patrols, but the boars continue to multiply and spread. Every week, farmers report new damage, ruined wheat fields, torn up soil, broken crops, and pastures that look as if heavy machinery plowed through them. It is in this growing crisis that our team decided to step in, not only because hunting is our profession, but because helping affected farmers has become a responsibility. The morning began quietly, with soft sunlight filtering through a line of trees behind a neighbor's house. As we walked into the small forest, the energy among the team was calm but focused. We set up our rifles, checked our positions, and waited for the signal from the dogs. The forest was still for several minutes, until a sharp burst of barking suddenly broke the silence. A wild boar, cornered by the dogs, burst out of the undergrowth with tremendous speed. Its powerful body pushed through branches and brush as it charged forward. I steadied my rifle and followed its movement. The first 2 shots grazed its back, making it stumble for a moment, but the boar pushed forward again. With the 3rd shot, the boar finally collapsed. The team quickly secured the area, and we recorded our first success of the day. After examining the terrain, it became clear that this forest was too small to shelter many boars. The dogs, still full of energy, led the way as we headed toward a larger field on the other side. The moment we stepped out of the forest, another boar appeared, trapped under a narrow stream bed as it tried to escape. I raised the rifle, aligned the shot, and ended it swiftly. Nearby, a small hill thick with brush rose above the stream. It was a kind of place boars often use for shelter, dense, shaded, and full of natural life. Standing at a vantage point, I watched the leaves with the slightest movement. Soon, a heavy dark shape slipped silently between the bushes. I fired again. The boar turned, tried to run a few meters, and then rolled down the slope. With 2 locations cleared, we moved toward another forest known for frequent boar activity, preparing for a much longer and more challenging encounter. The new forest we entered was far denser, filled with thickets where sunlight struggled to reach the ground. The moment we stepped in, the dogs picked up fresh scent trails weaving through the bushes. Their barks echoed through the trees, signaling that a pack of wild boars was hiding somewhere close. I steadied my rifle, knowing that once flushed out, these animals would explode into motion. A sudden rustling came from the shadows. I fired several shots toward the movement, not to kill immediately, but to drive them out into clearer terrain. The plan worked. A group of boars burst out from the bushes, growling and scattering in all directions. Leaves and dust flew into the air as their hooves tore through the forest floor. In the chaos, I spotted one still trying to stay hidden under a low branch. I lowered my rifle and fired a clean, decisive shot, bringing it down instantly. We continued deeper into the forest, following pathways barely visible beneath the thick foliage. Less than 30 minutes passed before another large boar wandered into sight. Its size alone showed how long it had been feeding off crops and farmland. I adjusted my aim carefully, knowing a creature like this could cover several meters in a single second if startled. The shot landed cleanly, and the boar collapsed between two fallen logs. The hunt stretched into late afternoon. Light filtered through the treetops in warm streaks as we walked along a narrow trail. We stopped near the edge of the forest, hoping to intercept any remaining boars before they retreated into deeper territory. The air was still, almost too calm, and then everything changed. A wild boar suddenly shot across the road ahead of us, so fast that all we saw at first was a blur of dark fur and dust. Instinct took over. I snapped the rifle up, lined the target, and fired before it disappeared into the brush. A moment later, another boar followed from the same direction, likely part of the same fleeing group. I steadied myself and fired again, dropping the second one where it stood. The sun was sinking behind the distant hills now, painting the forest in a golden-orange glow. Shadows stretched long across the ground as we began retracing our path, marking the end of a long, successful day, but the work was far from over. For 2 weeks now, villages in a rural region of Turkey have been reporting severe destruction caused by wild boars. Entire fields uprooted, livestock attacked at night, and fences crushed under the force of large herds. Farmers were desperate. Traditional methods had failed, and the animals were growing bolder with each passing night. Hearing their concerns, our team agreed to join forces with local residents and track down the herds responsible for the damage. As we arrived at the first village, the locals led us toward a wide clearing that bordered a mountain slope. This would be our first ambush site. We quickly took up positions across the terrain, watching the shadows stretching far across the fields. Before long, a line of dark shapes began emerging from the distance. The moment they sensed danger, they surged forward, scattering through the brush. I fired the first shot. The boar jolted in panic, tearing through the underbrush in a desperate attempt to escape. After several more rounds, it collapsed, and I felt a wave of relief. But we had no time to celebrate, because this was only the beginning of a much bigger challenge. Night was approaching fast, and with it came the most dangerous stage of the hunt. Wild boars become bolder after sunset, moving silently, attacking unpredictably, and using the darkness as their shield. By the time the last traces of daylight vanished behind the mountains, the entire valley had transformed into a maze of shadows. We climbed a narrow ridge overlooking the farmland, guided only by the faint glow of the moon and our dim headlamps. The air carried the thick scent of damp soil and crushed vegetation, clear signs that boars had moved through recently. We turned off our lights and stayed completely still. Seconds later, the dogs erupted in furious barking below us. They had found something. I crouched low, gripping my rifle tightly. Branches snapped somewhere in the darkness, followed by the unmistakable huffing growl of a charging boar. It was coming fast, too fast. I could feel the vibration in the ground before I even saw its silhouette. The moment the beast burst from the shadows, I fired a single shot. The boar skidded across the dirt, kicking up dust as it came to a stop right at the edge of the ridge. But we didn't have time to breathe. Another boar followed immediately behind the first, ramming through bushes with brute force. My partner took position beside me, steadied himself, and fired as it lunged forward. The boar collapsed mid-stride, rolling down the hill with a heavy thud. The villagers watching from a distance breathed a sigh of relief, but we knew the night was far from over. We made our way downhill toward a cluster of fruit orchards, places often targeted by hungry wild boars. These orchards have been devastated in recent weeks, with entire rows of young trees uprooted overnight. As we entered, the dogs stiffened, sniffing the air aggressively. Something was close. A sudden rustle near the tree line made us freeze. Then, without warning, a large boar burst out and sprinted toward the feeding troughs we had set earlier. I raised my rifle, aimed through the branches, and fired. The shot echoed through the orchard, and the boar collapsed between the trees. Minutes later, another signal from our dogs pulled us deeper into the forest. The terrain grew uneven, stumps, roots, and fallen branches everywhere. Here, one misstep could mean disaster. As we advanced, a faint, rhythmic crunching sound drifted toward us. Something was feeding ahead. Slowly, we crept forward until the outline of another boar appeared in the moonlight. It was massive, likely the dominant animal leading the herd. I steadied my breathing, aligned my sights, and fired. The giant staggered, took 2 confused steps, then toppled over with a thud that echoed through the forest. The locals who had come along cheered quietly, some whispering prayers of relief. But nature wasn't done testing us. Just as we began regrouping, a fresh wave of movement erupted behind a line of boulders. A group of boars, 5, maybe 6, rushed out together, startled by the noise. It was chaos. My mind froze instantly. I took the closest one, fired, and watched it drop. My partner fired at the next. Another hunter called out from the left, signaling a clear shot. Within seconds, the herd dispersed, disappearing into the darkness. Silence returned to the valley. Breathless, exhausted, and covered in dust, we looked at each other. The danger, the adrenaline, the responsibility. This was the reality of wild boar hunting. It wasn't sport. It wasn't just excitement. It was protection, survival, balance. With the final boar down and the orchard safe for the night, we began the long walk back to the village. Lanterns glowed warmly in the distance, guiding us home after a battle fought in the shadows.